All right, I will take a non-live question. All right, so Lenka's question. There's two questions, but the first one is, how do you navigate through restrictive or fear-driven attitudes from others? How could we bring this approach into the daily routines of our executive team? How much time do we have? So this is a really meaty one because this is something that comes up literally all the time when we deal with the things that I deal with. And I actually just dealt with it yesterday with somebody at an organization that I'm involved in. So we just start with this. So the idea of the replaceable founder, my idea behind it was not about replacing people, right? There is a difference between being replaceable and being replaced. And it's very, very important. Now, inevitably, in the process of making people more replaceable, we're going to replace some people. It happens. Now, ideally, we will replace people up, not necessarily out. The time that people get replaced out is the time when those people are not willing to accept that change is inevitable and important for the growth of the business. And when that happens, unfortunately, that person now becomes a liability and an enemy of your company. And you have to get rid of that threat, as it were. That obviously sounds maybe a little bit more aggressive than it necessarily has to be, but that is the way to think about it, right? If you have somebody in your business that has processes that are in their heads, that are not transparent, that have not been properly documented, that if they were to, the proverbial get hit by a bus situation would hurt your business, then they are a liability. Straight up. There's no other way to see it. And so you have to deal with that situation. So the biggest thing is that when going through these processes, when doing something that very surface level looks like you are taking away the thing that makes somebody valuable to the organization, which you are in essence, you're taking away the thing that looks like what makes them valuable. You're not taking away the thing that necessarily actually makes them valuable. And I'll explain that in a second. But when you do that, it is only natural that people who don't have that sort of growth mindset are going to be fearful of that. It's just the way it's going to be. That's not the question that we're on right now. We're on Lenka's question. It's fine. So if you have somebody that is performing in a role, and it doesn't matter what role, let's say accounting, marketing, whatever it might be, and they do something on let's say it's social media. Okay, let's say they're dealing with social media. So they're dealing with the graphics and they're writing the copy and researching the keywords, all that kind of stuff. And then you come in, you're like, hey, there's this new tool that is going to do all the things that you've been doing, and it's free, or it's $5 a month. It's going to completely replace all that work you've been doing. One person's going to look at that and be like, oh, God, no, I got to hold on to this, and I have to start explaining why I do it better and why I do it different. And that's when the person's like, no, but I spend 35 minutes like researching the right keyword because I have this experience in this, and then I have to crop this image for this platform and this one for this platform, and I do all these different things. Or you have the person that's like, wow, awesome. You're going to totally free me up to now do social media strategy and work at a higher level. And now I can become a marketing director and marketing operations CMO and all these things. And they can see that there is a path to rising. I had this, anybody who's been around my stuff for long enough has heard me say this before, but it is so valuable. A professor of mine in college used to say, never be irreplaceable, because if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted. And that's a really important way of looking at things, because you just make yourself stuck. And if you're stuck, then part or all of the organization is going to get stuck with you. So a lot of this is really education, and that's sort of, I guess, what people would call change management, and explaining very, very clearly to people, like, the goal of this is to allow you to do more interesting work that, of course, ultimately benefits the organization. But we want you to be able to work on things that you need to work on, meaning we don't want you working on the things that you feel like you have to work on, when clearly you don't, because other solutions exist. And I would also go so far as to say that as a business owner or leader, if you identify an inefficiency in your business, and one example of that would be a person doing work that a machine could do for them, then you are in essence allowing that person to be dehumanized, and you are glossing over a very clear responsibility that you have as a leader to remove those inefficiencies from that person's life. So you almost have to take, I don't want to say doomsday, but you almost have to say take a little bit of more of like a warlike approach to this with people. And it's not a war between you and them. It's a war between you and the inefficiencies that naturally exist in everybody's business that put those people into a situation where they're being subjugated to do work that is beneath them, quite honestly. And if you can show people that path, which is not easy, I get it, that, in my experience, has been the most effective way to get people, quote unquote, on the bus. Okay. Second question for Lenka. I already saw something good here. One of our execs has found themselves a bit overwhelmed with their inbox and has requested a new PA to help manage it. Shame. I've been thinking about implementing AI or automation help to tackle 12K-ish emails, 12,000-ish emails. And that's after I've completed inbox 0 steps. The remainder are all essential business emails, supplier proposals, potential clients, and other new opportunities we really should reconnect with. How would you go about it? Okay, so I feel like there has been, I've done this like ad nauseum about using assistants to manage email. I feel like it's a really bad thing to do for a number of different reasons. One is that I don't think that anybody's time is worthy of managing your emails or dealing with the fact that like you can't get more efficient. And I'm not attacking you, Lenka, or anybody in this case, but that's sort of the global way of looking at this. Like, why would you give somebody something that, like, just because you can't sort of handle it or make the effort? And it's not a matter, you know, if a dam is breaking, right? Sure, it might sound on the surface of it that it'd be great to have somebody else with a bucket to, you know, empty it with, or I guess a boat is overflowing with water. Like sure, it'd be great to have more people like getting the water out. But ultimately, that's not a solution, right? Because when does it end? You're going to have to keep bringing on more people. You're going to have to keep adding more resources, and you're going to lose. You're just delaying the inevitable, and you're further embedding yourself into a situation where you're dependent on somebody else to do something that you should have actually been able to handle in the beginning, and creates more darkness and more distance between that. So if that person leaves, you are way worse off than you were before. So the answer is no. They should not get that. That's a terrible, terrible idea. However, having said that, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't divide and conquer, because we should. So I find it hard to believe that of 12,000-ish emails that you find that those are all essential emails, but I'm going to suspend disbelief and pretend that that is correct for the moment, and how I would handle that situation if we had 12,000-ish emails that are actually valid and reasonable. So one thing is that, and I don't know what this person's position is, that they are getting supplier proposals, incoming clients, and new opportunities, unless you're talking about yourself and you're just the wearing the all hats person. We need to reduce the reliance on email, right? So one of the ways to do that is to use a tool like Intercom or Front or Drift, any of these shared inboxes that allow you to manage email as a team. There's actually a newish, well, it's not that new, but it's a newish tool to the market, which is called Sorted, S-O-R-T-D, which when I initially tested it out, I was not particularly a fan of it, but they've improved quite a few things, and it's an interesting concept. So basically what it allows you to do is essentially manage emails in a Trello setting, in a Kanban setting, and treat those emails as tasks. But this is the key. When you have that many emails coming in and they're around similar categorical things, so you have a bunch of supplier invoices, right, or proposals rather, you have a bunch of new leads, you have a bunch of new opportunities, like those are large categories. You need to basically be able to assign people to those categories together. And again, you can divide and conquer. So if we look at intercom, for example, what's great about intercom is that now instead of getting an email to Lenka at lenkascompany.com, it would be suppliers at lenkascompany.com and leads at, and not literally, but like essentially would have different sort of group general inboxes for those things. Now that comes into a tool like Intercom, and now let's say there's 3 of you on the team, and not executive assistants, not PAs, although they may be in there. But what this now allows us to do is to tackle those all together. So if 10 emails come in and there's 3 of us, we can be like, all right, I'm going to get to this one. And while I'm on this one, which you can see that I'm doing because you get live updates of it with a tool like that, you are then dealing with the next 2. And somebody else is dealing with the following 3 after that. And we can really sort of effectively manage that flow a lot better. So this may sound counter to what I'm talking about in terms of, just more people to use buckets to empty out the boat, but it's not, because this is not offloading it and creating a proxy with an assistant. This is really sharing the load amongst people that have the ability to actually make decisions and move things forward. Now within that, whether you use Intercom or not, Gmail, whatever you want to use, there are tools like compose.ai. And what compose.ai will do is you can literally have like 3 choices, which is like yes, no, or maybe, right? And you click that and it will write contextually an email that is appropriate to that person and say yes. So if somebody's like, hey, I want to offer you this thing, right? You can hit no and take a half a second to do that. And it'll say, thank you for offering me the thing that you offered specifically, right? But at this time, we're not interested, blah, blah, blah. Something like that. So it could be a huge time saver for that kind of stuff. But further to that, if you're going to want to follow up on any of these things, it's worthwhile moving this to some extent out of email and into a project management setting, whether it's Trello or Asana, Monday, whatever you want to use. But if it's something you're actually going to follow up on, or something that actually needs to be a task and have work done around it, then it really shouldn't stay in email. So the big message here is that we need to rely less on email to begin with. And if these are particularly, again, categorical things that we're dealing with, then they can come into specific places designed for those things. But the first step, in my mind, is that you want to have that shared responsibility, divide the load, but not basically like instead of sweeping it under the rug, which is what giving it to an assistant is, because ultimately what happens in that situation is the assistant may have some guidelines, they may be able to get through them, but at the end of the day, they're going to be coming back to this person with hundreds of like, okay, so for this email, what do you want to do with this? For this email, what do you want to do with this? So really just delaying something, making it so that the pile gets bigger, and you're not creating a memorialized way of dealing with this stuff in the future, because it's only going to get worse. So if you divide and conquer with people that are at the same level, and not saying that the assistants aren't at the level, but somebody who's in a decision-making capacity, basically, then you're not just creating an extra step. You're allowing more people to respond, and nothing will fall through the cracks in that way. So there's that. That's Lenka's answer. Okay, next.